Hi, welcome to Inova Talk. We're excited to be streaming live from Inova Fairfax Medical Center in Falls Church, Virginia. I'm your host, Dr. Charles Murphy, and today we're going to be talking about healthy holiday choices. Joining me today is Erin Lopynski, who is one of our excellent dietitians. Erin, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yes, I'm Erin Lopynski. I am a dietitian here at Inova Fairfax. I work with lung transplant patients, specifically cystic fibrosis patients. But I also am certified in weight management and take on my own clients with Eat with Erin, where I take on mostly weight loss clients.
Well, working with our lung transplant patients, it's like the best job in the world.
So. I love it, yes.
So I want to tell our audience, please post your questions in the comments section and we'll try to answer them live. And always, please keep in mind that this information is for informational purposes only and is not meant to replace your physician's advice. So let's get right into it, Erin. What advice would you give someone who wants to lose weight during this holiday season?
So typically I advise my clients and my patients to maintain weight during the holidays. I actually don't think it's best to lose weight during the holidays if we can try to help it. So I would say there's a lot of things to consider when you're trying to maintain weight. During the holidays, we want to be treating ourselves a little bit, and it's okay to do that. There's a lot of seasonal traditions, seasonal treats that we enjoy during the holidays, and it's more about moderation and finding balance, recognizing how to balance your meals a little bit better during the holidays, maybe choosing a little more fruits and vegetables than you might typically to help to keep full on fiber and water, so that way you're not overly indulgent at parties, and then trying to exercise. So when we typically think of weight loss, we often think of exercise, but actually exercise helps us to maintain weight, and cutting back and eating the right foods helps us to lose weight. So I would say if you're trying to maintain a healthy weight during the holidays, make sure to get a little extra exercise in and make sure to balance your meals and be moderate with your treats.
So it's really about both those things, and I know I
Yes.
tell my patients that one of the things that I think helps with exercise is to actually schedule your exercise.
Definitely.
I think that helps.
Yes, planning ahead is key.
So now this is the season of holiday parties as well, so maybe you could provide some advice if I'm planning to go to a holiday party about how I should approach that.
Sure. So thinking about planning ahead, before the party, try to make sure that you're not famished arriving to the party, making sure to have a good breakfast ahead of time. A high protein breakfast helps us to make sure that you're not going to be starving by the time you get to that party. Make sure to have snacks. And then by the time you get to the party, scan the buffet or where the food is, in full before you start to pick and choose what things you'd like. So that way you're able to absorb, okay, these are the things that I want to go for. These are the things that matter most to me to eat. Of course, there's going to be some treats and things that it might be a little bit more indulgent, but if you can load up a little bit on the lighter options first, a little bit more vegetables, as long as they're not laden with cream sauces and things like that, then that is the way to go. Drink more water between, talking with people, trying to mingle away from the food table and sip on beverages as opposed to drinking alcohol too quickly. Those types of things I would say are definitely beneficial.
And you had mentioned before, this is the season where you can actually sort of have a few special treats, but
Yes.
moderation is then
Yes.
very important as well.
Yeah, enjoying it and not feeling guilty, but choosing the treats that you want to indulge in wisely.
Okay, and how about tips for eating right?
During the holiday season?
What should I be looking for on that buffet table, and then I guess you could also tackle, how do we avoid having cravings that are going to sort of encourage us to even eat more than we should?
Right. Okay, so there's three kind of anti-nutrients that slip into a lot of our foods: added sugars, added sodium or salt, and added fats. So a lot of the times those types of ingredients are in a lot of our holiday favorites. So it's tricky because we don't want to cut those treats out. And again, it's about that mindfulness. So if we're able to recognize that the foods that are closest to nature are actually the least likely to have those anti-nutrients. So if we can enjoy a little bit more vegetables, roasted vegetables, enjoying some different recipes that have more natural ingredients that aren't inundated with a lot of additives, and so if we were able to look at and read ingredients before we buy them, those types of things might not increase our cravings as much.
Geez, I'm glad to hear all this because I usually head for the opposite end of the table than I think the one you want me to. Maybe we can, and then if you could talk about, I think, part of the holidays is drinking usually perhaps some alcoholic beverages, and eggnog comes to mind and such, and maybe you could talk to us about how to sort of get more healthy drinks and avoid some of the calories but still get the tastes that we want to have.
Right, so that's actually a good segue. So with alcohol also can increase our appetite and cause our cravings to go through the roof. So if we're able to choose certain drinks that are a little bit lighter but that don't take away from what we enjoy about the drink, like there are certain eggnogs that are actually very tasty that are lighter in the grocery store refrigerators. So looking for certain brands that say light or don't have as many ingredients or actually use cinnamon and not just like flavorings and things of that nature, but actually sticking to drinks that are naturally light in general. So like a wine or like Prosecco. One favorite drink of mine is putting in a cinnamon stick that you can use as a straw into a Prosecco, and thinking of that as kind of your holiday flair, as opposed to a lot of the creams and juices and simple syrups that can load down and add calories to your drinks. And I think, what was I going to mention? Oh, so making sure that as a woman, typically 1 drink per night. As a male, 2 drinks is what's recommended for healthy moderation. So just keep that in mind, and drinking water is also a key thing to think about.
One thing I didn't really realize is I think club soda has less calories than tonic water, so
that's true.
Smarter to do club soda than tonic water.
Yeah, and a lot of people water down drinks if they know that it's heavy in sugar. Watering down your drinks, there's no harm in that.
Okay, and then I guess the other thing we were talking about was simple syrup, that potentially asking the bartender not to put the simple syrup in, but use the fruit and such instead.
Yes, when you're out, And, hard liquors, like if you're doing like a vodka drink or something like that, doing like a vodka water with lime or with like a splash of lime juice, things like that can just help to reduce.
Sure, because I guess all this sort of adds up.
It can add up.
And so, if you sort of tackle it along the way, then all of a sudden you've made a real dent.
Right, because alcohol has the calories, but also the fats and sugars do too. So altogether, it can definitely add up.
And then not to forget to go exercise the next morning, some to help with that weight maintenance that you were talking about.
For sure.
Okay, and so I'm sure my audience really is going to not like the next question, but that's like the worst things that you can eat during the holidays.
Right. So the worst things to eat, I would say if you're able to look at labels and pick out some of those added nutrients. Trans fat or hydrogenated oils in our packaged foods are some of the worst things for our heart. So if you're able to recognize some of your favorite foods that might have those in there that we don't typically want to admit to ourselves. But I would say, as I mentioned, those 3 anti-nutrients that slip into food, those might be in our favorite boxed goods. And yes, the packaged processed foods are the least healthy. There's not one specific food that I would say avoid that. There's certain, cookies or recipes or things like that we can make homemade that can help to reduce some of those added nutrients. But I wouldn't say that, there's one food to avoid. I think it's actually better to focus on the foods that we should be eating as opposed to the foods we have to steer clear of. So, trying to kind of make sure that you're choosing roasted vegetables and, getting excited about some more like warm, cozy meals that you can throw into your crock pot that has protein, that has, healthy fats from olive oil, things like that can actually be a lot better of a focus.
Okay, and then how about the dessert part of things? Maybe we should get you into how do we do a better job with desserts? Because I have to say, I'm sitting here thinking about cheesecake and some things like that.
So again, if you're able to, have a small piece of your favorite, the rest of the year, if you're finding, ways to cut back on desserts, I would say, if you're able to add fruit to desserts, if you're able to, choose lighter ingredients when you're actually cooking. But when we're at a party or when we're at an event, it's kind of hard to be like, well, I have to choose these lighter desserts. So, if there are fruit-based desserts, that's helpful. But I would say just have a smaller portion of your favorite desserts, like your cheesecake, just making sure to have a small slice and, not grazing on all of these types of things. Choose the one that you like the most and have it as a special time to have that food.
Grazing, you've certainly seen me at the parties, I can tell. So, and I guess like blueberries, comes to mind. Like, so if you get those fruits and you can get some
Definitely.
good antioxidant
Yes.
type properties that sort of benefit you to some extent.
Yes, benefit our mind and our heart. During the winter season, yes, antioxidants are even more important. We're not always getting a lot of the nutrients that we get when we're outdoors, like the vitamin D and everything, so we want to make sure to be eating a lot of natural foods.
Okay, super. So now we'll put you on the spot a little bit here. So maybe some recipes that you would recommend for people?
So Inova, heart.org/recipes has some good recipes on hand. So if you wanted to check those out. But I would say a lot of times we're very, sticking to this like scripted long recipe, unless this recipe has a lot of, all of the ingredients are all kinds of different herbs and spices. I would say try to keep it simple. So for example, whole roasted carrots are one of my favorite things. So just throw in a little olive oil, a little salt and pepper, or thyme or rosemary are my favorites on the roasted carrots, throwing them in the oven, even with the stalk on it, can be as simple as that. Or same thing with cauliflower, throw in some olive oil on that and some of your favorite spices like garlic. So roasted vegetables are one of my favorite things to, obviously, I've mentioned it a few times, to include. So if you can be that person that, throws in some vegetables in the mix when you're the one that's providing some foods, that can be a good thing.
Well, those roasted vegetables have such a great taste, too.
Yes,
so
yes.
I think that's an excellent suggestion.
And Brussels sprouts or any greens that you can get in there. A lot of people, they don't like the smell of Brussels sprouts. Green beans are fine. So just, green beans, olive oil, and almonds, simple as that, throw it in the oven. There's a lot of festive salads, too, by the way, that are really great. So you can throw together just like spinach with pomegranates, with walnuts for some omega-3s for your brain if things are getting a little stressful, and then feta, a little balsamic, and some olive oil, and you're done. So
glad we have a big buffet here after our session here. So, 'cause you're making me hungry. And so, how about maybe you could talk about carbs a little bit and bread, and because I think everybody tends to be interested in what I need to do about carbs and bread and such.
So with carbohydrates, they're our body's main source of energy. So we don't want to just completely cut out carbohydrates, especially during the holidays, because that's not realistic. You have a bite of a cookie and then all of a sudden you're going crazy and having 7. So I would say choose the carbohydrates that are complex carbohydrates that have fiber, certain whole grains, choosing those types of things. Fruits, of course, are more of a simple carbohydrate, but they have the fiber too, and they have those antioxidants that help as well. When it comes to the carbohydrate group, it's so vast. Most things have a little bit of carbohydrates in them, but the list that has fiber, beans, quinoa, brown rice, wild rice, things of that nature, sticking to those. Or there's all kinds of pastas these days out there. There's like chickpea pasta and all kinds of different whole grain pastas. So I would try to make sure that you're reading your ingredients, making sure there's at least 3 grams of fiber in there, and choosing the complex carbohydrates.
Okay. And then still sort of saying that carbohydrate area, sugar substitutes, is that a worthwhile thing to do, or can you give us some advice about that?
Sure. So sugar substitutes, they're still up for debate. I would say, sugar is the main thing we want to cut back. That's been proven by research. From the American Heart Association, they say less than 35 grams for women, less than 40 grams for men, or something along that range. So yes, we do want to cut back on sugar. And if you have some recipes that taste fine with stevia or some of the other sweeteners, I would go for some of the more natural sweeteners if you can. Again, not as much research on that area. And I would even be moderate in that, because that sweet taste oftentimes increases the cravings in general. So just be a little careful with that. It's not to say that, now that we have a sweetener in there and now we can go buck wild and have as much of the pie as we want, So it's just, we still, in all things, want to be moderate.
Okay. Wow, this is a great opportunity to get to talk about all these things I've had questions about. So now I'm going to I keep throwing all these curveballs at Erin that she didn't even know I was going to be asking, and she's doing a great job with it. But so I want to actually, how about chocolate?
Sure.
Can we maybe tackle chocolate a little bit? Because that's sort of one of the favorite holiday type foods and such. So
I love chocolate. Actually, I'm a proponent of a little piece of chocolate every day. It's good for your brain. But I would say dark chocolate if you're able to choose. So I would try to aim for above 75 to 80%. And when I throw out these numbers, don't quote me on them, but I think that is about where I would recommend for greater than 80% dark chocolate.
Okay, super. Yeah. All right, I'll try to stick with those dark chocolates.
Yeah.
You know, one of the other things about the holiday season is that actually I think many of the viewers may be aware that it tends to be a time when depression occurs more, and so maybe you could also talk about how to maintain a healthy attitude and try to avoid sort of depression.
Yeah. So one of the first things that I would say is be realistic. I mean, during the holidays, we tend to put a lot of pressure on ourselves, on our family. So if we're able to realize that times and families change and grow, and it's not all going to be perfect during the holidays. So thinking about how making sure that you're not putting so much pressure on yourself and enjoying your time with your family, and that's the most important thing. 1 or 2 holiday family traditions, keeping that in mind, of course, but don't put so much pressure to make sure everything's perfect and everything goes the way that we always want it to go. So that's one thing I would say. Another thing that helps to reduce stress is planning ahead. Not being that shopper that waits till Christmas Eve, because then we could get trampled, right? It's a little crazy out there.
If you wait till the day after Christmas, you can get some really good sales.
That's true. That's very true. But yeah, planning ahead is key. Planning ahead before you go grocery shopping, so that way you're not, making a list on the spot and then your budget goes out the window. So making a budget, those are the types of things that we hear to make sure that you're reducing that stress.
And maybe not going to the grocery store famished.
Yes, don't go to the grocery store hungry, yes. And, in general, don't be hangry during the Christmas holiday season, because it's just, recipe for stress. Trying to think of some other ones. Exercise, of course, reduces stress. Scheduling downtime for yourself, meditating. And when we hear meditating, even just taking time to breathe, deep inhale and exhale 5 in a row, that makes a huge difference, just to start your day that way, end your day that way. And then just remember what's the most important, giving back, being around the people we love, donating with the people we love, doing what matters as opposed to being so pressed for all the things that we want.
And it is a great season for giving.
Yes,
so,
exactly.
I mean, there's lots of opportunities to do that to people that are in need.
Yeah,
and so
exactly.
It's a great time to do that as well. I think one thing that comes to mind for me is there's something called 3 Good Things, and our viewers could Google that, but 3 Good Things and doing it over a period of several weeks is also strong evidence base behind it for being effective in terms of helping keep a positive attitude as well.
Yeah, I like that. Well, and also last thing is don't abandon healthy habits that you already have during the holidays. If you've gotten good at staying well hydrated throughout the day, or going on a walk in the morning, or including greens or protein at breakfast, or snacking on the right things, don't abandon those during the holidays, just because times might be a little bit more crazy. So stick to the things that work for you, and making sure that,
Yeah, I was thinking about that when we were talking about exercise, that, although we can schedule time to do an exercise class or whatever, you can also take the opportunity to just do the exercise that you can be normally part of your day, like taking the stairs instead of taking the elevator. And
yes, walking more, dancing more, all the holiday music, those types of things.
Oh, you want me to dance down the halls?
Yes, dance down the halls.
That'll definitely burn a few calories, but I may get a few raised eyebrows from my team, I think. But I understand what you're saying, so that sounds like sort of fun.
Yeah.
And then I think, as we're also talking about this, I think the importance of, again, what you said, I think if you wanted to summarize sort of our thoughts, what would you say?
I would say enjoy, but be mindful. Don't try to lose weight during the holidays, and to maintain weight, stay hydrated, exercise, eat balanced meals, don't skip meals or go long hours without eating to avoid being hangry. Making a mental list of the treats that you like the most, and being picky choosy with that, and then having those in moderation. And having those maybe with, special people in your life to make them more meaningful as opposed to grazing. And then don't stress. Those would be my...
Yeah, which I think your point about preparation,
Yes.
And doing things in advance so that you don't put yourself in a situation where you're going to be stressed out makes a lot of sense to me in this holiday season, because there tends to be a fairly fast pace.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and that communication with people too. So if you feel like you're one of those people where during the holidays you kind of get a little bit more, lonely or things like that, it's important to communicate and have people around, and not to stress as much about the little things.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think as you're to your point, there are opportunities to be out with other people, and
Yes.
I think that's very helpful to be in groups, et cetera.
Yes.
So I think that's great advice. Well, thanks so much for joining us today and sending in your questions. If we did not get to your question, we'll try to post an answer later. Erin, thank you very much. This was a very enjoyable conversation, although I'm going to have to go out and graze now that we're done, because there are all these great suggestions. And
Grazing on roasted veggies,
Well, great, right. And I can't wait to try the Prosecco with the cinnamon stick in it.
Yes.
And just to repeat again, for holiday recipes, we can have people go to inovaheart.org/recipes. And then if you're interested in learning more about the benefits of eating healthy, you can join our Ask the Expert session in-person lecture. There is a lecture coming up on Saturday, December 7th, so I think that's this Saturday, on the topic of how eating healthy can actually prevent cancer. And you can register for this meeting at inova.org/asktheexpert. And as always, if you need assistance locating a physician, you can visit inova.org/physicians. And you can also feel free to call our physician referral service at 1-855-MyInova, which is 694-6682 for any questions. And thank you for joining us today. We appreciate your time, and hopefully you'll attend some of our future sessions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.